The rain painted streaks down the windows of Meridian Bar as Victoria Sterling stumbled toward the exit, her designer heels clicking unevenly against the marble floor. The bartender had cut her off 20 minutes ago, but she could still taste the bitter edge of whiskey on her tongue. 3 years of building Sterling Tech into a pharmaceutical empire, and here she was at 2 in the morning, barely able to walk straight. Her phone buzzed with the Uber notification. Driver Marcus, 4.9 stars, arriving in a silver Toyota Camry. Victoria pulled her coat tighter against the October wind and squinted through the rain until headlights swept across the parking lot. Marcus Chun turned off the engine and watched the woman approach his car. Even in her disheveled state, everything about her screamed wealth and authority. The way she carried herself, despite the alcohol, spoke of someone accustomed to being obeyed. He unlocked the doors and waited. Victoria collapsed into the back seat with less grace than she intended, immediately noticing the pristine interior and the faint scent of vanilla air freshener. Medical journals were stacked neatly in the front passenger seat, their spines catching the streetlight. "Good evening," Marcus said, adjusting his rearview mirror to get a better look at his passenger. "The address on the app shows Beacon Hill. Is that correct?" Victoria nodded, not trusting her voice yet. She studied the back of his head, noting the careful way he spoke, the gentle hands on the steering wheel. "Before we get going," she managed, "what state are you originally from? I always wonder about the people who end up driving strangers around at this hour." The question surprised Marcus, but he sensed genuine curiosity beneath her slurred words rather than condescension. "California originally," Marcus replied, pulling smoothly into traffic. "Been in Boston about 5 years now. What about you?" Victoria let out a bitter laugh. "Born and raised here. Silver spoon and all that nonsense." She gestured vaguely at his pristine dashboard. "So this is what you do full-time. Drive people like me around when they make poor life choices." Marcus glanced in the mirror at her tone. "Night shift helps with my daughter's schedule. She has medical appointments during the day." "Of course you have a kid," Victoria muttered, sinking deeper into the leather seat. "Let me guess, baby mama drama. Can't make the child support payments on a real job." The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus felt his jaw tighten, but kept his voice steady. "My daughter lives with me. Has since she was 3. Victoria noticed the medical journals again, their thick spines suggesting advanced textbooks rather than popular health magazines. She squinted at the titles, but the alcohol made the words swim together. "What's with all the reading material? Trying to diagnose your passengers." "Those are for Emma," Marcus said quietly. "My daughter has a rare neurological condition. The more I understand it, the better I can help her navigate the treatments." Something in his tone made Victoria pause. There was an intelligence in his speech, a precision that didn't match her assumptions about late-night Uber drivers. She studied his profile in the passing streetlights, noting the careful way he navigated the empty streets, the medical terminology he'd used so casually. The car fell into uncomfortable silence as they approached Beacon Hill, Victoria's judgment warring with an unexpected curiosity about this man who spoke of neurological conditions like he understood them. As they turned onto Victoria Street, she leaned forward to get a better look at the journals. The top one was titled Advanced Pediatric Neurology, its pages marked with dozens of colorful tabs. Below it, she glimpsed molecular genetics and something about cerebrospinal fluid analysis. "Those look pretty intense for bedtime reading," she said, her words still slurred but her curiosity cutting through the alcohol haze. Marcus pulled up to her brownstone, a magnificent 4-story building with ornate iron railings and gas lamps flanking the entrance. "Emma asks a lot of questions about her condition. I like to have answers for her." Victoria stared at him through the rearview mirror. "How old did you say she was?" 8, Marcus replied, putting the car in park. "But she reads at a high school level." "Has to, really." The doctors use big words when they talk about her future. The way he said future made Victoria's chest tighten. There was resignation there, mixed with fierce determination. She fumbled for her purse, trying to focus on the payment screen on her phone, but the numbers kept swimming. "What exactly is wrong with her?" Victoria heard herself asking. The question surprised her. She never asked personal questions of service workers. Chiari malformation with associated syringomyelia, Marcus said without hesitation. Basically, part of her brain tissue extends into her spinal canal, creating pressure and fluid buildup. Victoria's phone slipped from her hands. Even through the whiskey fog, she recognized the terminology. Those weren't words someone learned from Google searches or Wikipedia articles. That was the language of medical school, of years of training, of someone who understood the intricate mechanics of the human nervous system. 5 years earlier, Dr. Marcus Chun had been the youngest neurosurgeon on staff at Massachusetts General Hospital. His hands had been steady, his diagnoses precise, his reputation sterling. The medical journals scattered across his Uber's passenger seat were remnants of that life. Textbooks he couldn't bear to sell because they reminded him of who he used to be. The night everything changed, Marcus had been scheduled for a routine tumor removal on a wealthy businessman. Standard procedure, minimal risk, the kind of surgery that paid well and impressed hospital administrators. But as he scrubbed in, an emergency case arrived. 7-year-old girl, massive head trauma from a car accident, minutes from death. The businessman's family demanded Marcus honor their scheduled appointment. The hospital board pressured him to follow protocol. The girl's single mother begged him through tears to save her daughter. Marcus looked at the child's brain scans and knew she had maybe 20 minutes before the damage became irreversible. He chose the girl. The surgery took 8 hours. Marcus saved her life, reconnected severed neural pathways, gave her back her future. But the businessman died waiting for the next available surgeon, someone less skilled, someone who couldn't navigate the complications that arose. The family sued. The medical board investigated. Headlines screamed about a rogue doctor who abandoned his patient. Marcus lost his license, his career, his identity. Emma's mother, unable to handle the scandal and financial pressure, disappeared when Emma was 3, leaving Marcus alone with a daughter who was just beginning to show symptoms of her own neurological condition. He sold everything, moved to Boston for a fresh start, and discovered that former surgeons make excellent Uber drivers. The hands that once held scalpels now held steering wheels. Victoria fumbled with her keys at the brownstone's entrance, the brass doorknob refusing to cooperate with her unsteady hands. After 3 failed attempts, she slumped against the heavy wooden door and let out a frustrated sob. Marcus had been watching from the car, engines still running. Something about her defeated posture reminded him of the desperate parents he used to counsel in hospital waiting rooms. He turned off the engine and approached carefully. Having trouble with the lock, he asked gently. Victoria looked up. Mascara streaked across her cheeks. The key won't turn. It's like the whole damn universe is conspiring against me tonight. Marcus examined the lock with the same methodical attention he once applied to surgical procedures. The mechanism was old, but well-maintained. May I, he asked, extending his hand for the keys. Victoria hesitated, then dropped them into his palm. His fingers were steady, precise, as he inserted the key and applied gentle pressure at just the right angle. The lock clicked open effortlessly. How did you do that? Victoria asked, staring at him with new interest. Marcus handed back her keys. Sometimes things just need the right touch. Patience helps too. Victoria pushed open the door, but didn't move to enter. Instead, she turned back to study this man who spoke like a doctor, had hands like a surgeon, and showed more kindness to a drunk stranger than anyone had shown her in months. I was horrible to you tonight, she said quietly. Made assumptions about your life, your intelligence, your worth. Why did you still help me? Marcus considered the question, thinking of Emma asleep in their small apartment, of the promise he'd made to always choose compassion over pride. Because everyone deserves to make it home safely, regardless of their worst moments. Victoria stood in her doorway, suddenly unwilling to enter the empty house that awaited her. The silence inside felt more suffocating than the October rain. She turned back to Marcus, who was walking toward his car. Wait, she called out, her voice cracking. I don't want to be alone right now. Marcus paused, recognizing the raw vulnerability in her words. It was the same tone he'd heard from countless family members in hospital corridors, the sound of someone drowning in their own pain. "Would you like me to call someone for you?" he asked gently. "Family, friends." Victoria laughed bitterly. "My parents died 3 years ago. Car accident. My brother lives in California and hasn't spoken to me since I fired him from the company. Friends tend to disappear when you become a functioning alcoholic who works 18-hour days." She sat down heavily on her front steps, not caring that the rain was soaking through her expensive coat. Marcus found himself sitting beside her, his medical training overriding any concern about professional boundaries. "I had a daughter once," Victoria continued, staring at the empty street. "Lily. She would have been 10 next month. Brain tumor. The doctor said they caught it early, that the surgery would fix everything. But there were complications." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He knew where this story was heading, had lived through similar tragedies countless times. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper. "I started Sterling Tech to fund pediatric brain tumor research. Thought I could save other children, honor her memory. Instead, I just became obsessed with work, with success, with anything that would make me forget. The drinking started small, just wine with dinner. Now look at me." Marcus understood now why she'd recognized his medical terminology, why pharmaceutical research mattered so deeply to her broken heart. Victoria woke at noon with a pounding headache and fragments of memory dancing through her mind. Rain-soaked steps, medical journals, a man with gentle hands and precise words who spoke about neurological conditions like he understood them intimately. She reached for her phone, scrolling through the Uber app until she found the previous night's ride. Marcus Chun, 4.9 stars, drove a silver Toyota Camry and knew more about brain surgery than most people knew about their own jobs. She remembered his daughter, Emma, 8 years old with Chiari malformation. She remembered her own cruel assumptions about baby mama drama and child support. Most clearly, she remembered the way he'd listened without judgment when she broke down about Lily. Victoria's hand shook as she typed a message through the app. "Marcus, this is Victoria from last night. I owe you an enormous apology for my behavior. Would you allow me to buy you coffee as a small gesture of thanks for your kindness?" The response came 20 minutes later. "No apology necessary. Coffee sounds nice, but I can only meet briefly. Emma has physical therapy at 3. They arranged to meet at a small cafe near Boston Children's Hospital." Victoria arrived early, ordering black coffee and trying to piece together exactly what she wanted to say. When Marcus walked in, she was struck by how different he looked in daylight. The exhaustion was still there, etched in the lines around his eyes, but there was also an unmistakable intelligence, a quiet dignity that her drunken state had prevented her from seeing clearly. "Thank you for coming," Victoria said as he sat down. "I need to apologize for the horrible things I said about you and your daughter. I was drunk and bitter and took it out on a stranger who showed me nothing but respect." Marcus studied her face, noting the genuine remorse there. "We all have difficult nights. No harm done." After coffee, Marcus excused himself to collect Emma from physical therapy. Victoria lingered outside the cafe, then found herself walking toward Boston Children's Hospital. She told herself it was coincidence, but curiosity pulled her forward like gravity. In the neurology wing's waiting area, she spotted Marcus immediately. He sat beside a small girl with dark hair and bright eyes, both of them bent over a tablet, displaying what looked like brain imaging scans. Victoria positioned herself behind a pillar, close enough to overhear their conversation. "So the ventricles are like little lakes in your brain," Emma was saying, pointing at the screen with scientific precision. "And the cerebrospinal fluid is supposed to flow like rivers between them." "Exactly right," Marcus replied. "And your Chiari malformation is like a dam that sometimes blocks those rivers." Dr. Rodriguez appeared, chart in hand. "Marcus, good to see you. How's our favorite patient today?" Victoria's breath caught. The way the doctor addressed Marcus wasn't the casual politeness reserved for parents. There was professional respect there, colleague to colleague. "Emma's been experiencing fewer headaches since we adjusted her positioning during sleep," Marcus reported. "The morning nausea has decreased by roughly 60%, and her fine motor control scores improved on yesterday's assessment. Dr. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. Your monitoring has been invaluable. Have you given any more thought to our conversation about the research position? Marcus glanced at Emma, who was now engaged with a puzzle. We discussed this, Carlos. My focus needs to be on Emma right now. The hospital needs someone with your expertise leading the Pediatric Neurology Research Division, Dr. Rodriguez pressed. Your insights could help thousands of children like Emma. Victoria stepped closer, her pharmaceutical background making her recognize the significance of what she was witnessing. This wasn't a parent getting medical updates. This was a consultation between equals. Victoria waited until Marcus and Emma left before approaching Dr. Rodriguez. Excuse me, she said, extending her business card. I'm Victoria Sterling, CEO of Sterling Tech. I couldn't help overhearing your conversation with Marcus Chun. Dr. Rodriguez examined her card with interest. Sterling Tech, of course. Your pediatric neurological research grants have been instrumental in our work here. What can I do for you? That man, Marcus, Victoria said carefully. You spoke to him like a colleague, not just a parent. Dr. Rodriguez glanced around, then lowered his voice. Marcus Chun was one of the most brilliant neurosurgeons I've ever worked with. Harvard Medical, Johns Hopkins residency, published extensively on pediatric brain malformations. He pioneered 3 surgical techniques we still use today. Victoria's world tilted. But he drives for Uber. Lost his license 5 years ago, Dr. Rodriguez explained. Chose to save a dying child instead of following hospital protocol. The family he abandoned sued successfully. Medical board revoked his privileges. Completely destroyed his career for doing what any decent human being would do. The irony hit Victoria like a physical blow. She'd spent 3 years building Sterling Tech to fund exactly the kind of research Marcus had been conducting. Her company's latest initiative focused specifically on Chiari malformations and related conditions, the same disorder affecting his daughter. Dr. Rodriguez continued. We've been trying to convince him to join our research team in a consulting capacity. His insights could revolutionize treatment protocols. But he won't consider it, says he's not worthy of practicing medicine anymore. Victoria stared down the hallway, where Marcus had disappeared. The man she dismissed as an uneducated driver was actually the exact expert her company desperately needed. The cruel assumptions she'd made about his life were the opposite of reality. He hadn't failed upward into medicine. He'd fallen downward from greatness, sacrificing everything for a moral principle she could barely comprehend. Victoria called Marcus that evening, her hands trembling as she dialed. When he answered, she could hear Emma's laughter in the background, the sound of a normal family dinner that felt impossibly precious. Marcus, I need to see you, Victoria said. There's something important I need to discuss. They met at the same cafe the next morning. Victoria had spent hours preparing her words, but when she saw Marcus walk in, everything she'd planned seemed inadequate. I know who you are, she said without preamble. Dr. Rodriguez told me about your background, about what happened 5 years ago. Marcus's face went pale. He sat down heavily, his hands folding carefully in his lap. I see. Sterling Tech has been working on Chiari malformation research for 2 years, Victoria continued. We've made progress, but we need someone with real clinical experience, someone who understands the condition from both a medical and personal perspective. Marcus shook his head slowly. Victoria, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm not qualified anymore. I lost my license, my credibility, everything that made me useful in that world. You saved a child's life, Victoria said fiercely. You chose compassion over protocol and lost everything for it. That doesn't make you unqualified. It makes you exactly the kind of person who should be leading medical research. Marcus stared at his coffee, unable to meet her eyes. I failed that businessman. His family suffered because of my choice. I can't pretend that didn't happen. Victoria leaned forward. What if I told you that your research could help Emma and thousands of children like her? What if refusing this opportunity means other families go through what you're experiencing right now? The words hung between them like a challenge. forcing Marcus to confront the possibility that his self-imposed exile might be causing more harm than the mistake that started it all. That evening, Marcus sat on Emma's bed as she completed her physical therapy exercises. Her movements were more fluid than they'd been months ago, but he could still see the subtle tremor in her left hand, the way she compensated for balance issues that other children didn't face. "Daddy," Emma said, setting down her coordination puzzle, "why you look so sad tonight?" Marcus considered lying, offering some simple explanation that would protect her from adult complexities. Instead, he found himself telling her about Victoria's offer, about the chance to return to medical research, about his fears of not being worthy anymore. Emma listened with the serious attention she brought to everything, her 80-year-old mind processing information with startling maturity. "Remember when I asked you why you became a doctor?" she said finally. "To help sick children feel better," Marcus replied, reciting the answer he'd given her countless times. "And did you stop wanting to help sick children when you lost your license?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. "No, sweetheart, I never stopped wanting that." Emma climbed into his lap with careful movements, her small hands framing his face. "Then why are you punishing all the other sick children because one person got mad at you for saving someone?" The simple logic hit him like a revelation. In trying to atone for his failure, he'd been withholding his gifts from the children who needed them most. His penance had become another form of selfishness. "Sometimes grown-ups make things too complicated," Emma continued. "You taught me that when something is broken, you try to fix it. You don't hide the tools." Marcus held his daughter close, understanding finally that his greatest failure wasn't the choice he'd made 5 years ago. It was the choice he'd been making every day since, to let his shame matter more than his purpose. 6 months later, Dr. Marcus Chun stood in the gleaming research laboratory at Sterling Tech, watching his team analyze the latest trial results for their revolutionary Chiari malformation treatment. The therapy they developed combined surgical intervention with targeted medication, reducing recovery time by 70% and eliminating the need for repeat procedures in most cases. Emma sat at a small desk in the corner, working on homework between her own treatment sessions. Her condition had stabilized dramatically since Marcus joined the research team, partly due to the new protocols he'd helped develop, partly due to the renewed sense of purpose that had transformed their entire family. Victoria approached, holding a tablet, displaying their 6-month progress report. 53 children successfully treated, she announced. 0 complications, 92% showing complete symptom resolution. Marcus nodded, his attention focused on the data rather than the accolades. Each number represented a family that wouldn't face the uncertainty he'd lived with for years. The board approved expansion to 6 more hospitals. Victoria continued. Dr. Rodriguez wants to establish a fellowship program using our protocols. Emma looked up from her homework. "Daddy, does this mean other kids won't have to be scared about brain surgery anymore?" Marcus knelt beside her desk. "It means we're giving them better chances, sweetheart. Better tools to fix what's broken." Victoria watched the exchange, remembering the drunk, bitter woman who dismissed this man as uneducated 6 months ago. Her recovery had been slower than his professional rehabilitation, but watching him transform lives had somehow helped heal her own broken places. "You know," she said to Marcus, "if this story touched your heart or if you've seen hidden talents in people others underestimated, I'd love to hear about it in the comments." Sometimes the most extraordinary gifts come in the most unexpected packages. Marcus smiled, understanding that some journeys from despair to purpose were worth sharing with others who might need hope.